Hi, welcome to the Chinese Medicine Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about dampness and cheese.
Cheese is a kind of meat, a tasty yellow beef.
It's a delicious, beautiful, yummy cheese. There you go, have a look at that. What is cheese in Chinese medicine? Is cheese good for us? What kinds of cheeses might be better for us than other cheeses? And what does cheese even do for our body? So let's get into it. What does cheese have to do with dampness? Can I eat cheese if I have dampness? And today it's the cheese lineup. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, make sure you click that button below, subscribe, click the notifications so you don't miss out. We're going to get to 1,000 subscribers this year. And I'd love you to come with me on this journey of cheese today to discover what does cheese do for our body in a Chinese medicine sense. We're going to be going through an arrangement of cheeses, an assortment of cheeses today, a journey of cheese. I've got 15 different kinds of cheeses and we're going to be talking all about them, tasting them and looking at what do they do for our body in a Chinese medicine sense. So don't forget to click subscribe and let's get going on the cheese journey. What I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be talking about different cheeses and telling you what they do in a Chinese medicine sense, and more importantly, for people that have a damp condition, when might cheeses be beneficial to us, and when might they be not so beneficial? So what kind of conditions might they be not so good for? So if you have dampness and you love cheese, that's a very common situation, and people think, well, I'd rather have some cheese rather than no cheese. What cheese can you have? So that's what we're going to be looking at today. Hi, I'm Marie Hopkinson. I'm a Chinese medicine practitioner, and today I'm going to be talking about cheese and what does cheese do in Chinese medicine? Cheese in Chinese medicine. So we're going to be reviewing a whole bunch of different cheeses. I'm going to be talking about what conditions they might be good for and what conditions they might be aggravating or not so great for. Or if you have a particular pattern of disharmony, let's say, what cheeses might you try to avoid versus what cheeses might be better or okay for you to have. Now, I've just realized I've got a ton of cheese here. I've got like, I've got so many cheeses and no crackers, so I'm just gonna have to go and grab a cracker. Just give me one. Right, so I've got myself a box of crackers because I have a feeling we're gonna need those today. So what are we gonna talk about with cheese? Marie, why would you make a whole video about cheese? Okay, so just like everything with Chinese medicine, it's not like an either or. Usually there's a spectrum of things. So I'm going to sort of do a little bit of a cheese lineup, sort of like if you've ever seen Seinfeld, you've seen the George Costanza candy bar lineup.
And so, without further ado, I give you the candy lineup.
This is going to be a bit like a cheese lineup. So what I'm going to do with these cheeses is I'm going to rate them basically in an order from what I would consider to be more dampening to least dampening, okay? So what we've got here is let's just start with these kind of harder cheeses. These tend to be much less dampening than something like a soft, creamier cheese. So I'm going to put these here. Now this has got a little bit of Parmesan in it, and Parmesan's a much harder cheese. Now I could have gotten some, this isn't all the cheeses you can buy, believe me. I was like, in the supermarket could have bought a heaps more different kinds of cheeses, and I thought I'd get a general sort of selection. Now the creamier and richer a cheese is, the more towards the dampening, and the more something's dampening, the benefit of a dampening food is that it tends to be more nourishing and sustenance building in our body. So for someone who's like elderly or needing a lot of like sustenance to kind of grow their body, then sometimes those richer, denser, like yin tonic type of foods can be useful for those things. And everything's should be in a proportion to, one is your constitution, and then secondly probably the things that are going on in your body, which are often related to your constitution, but then also in a quantity sense. So anything in a large quantity can be a lot more damaging than something might be in a small quantity be okay, but in a larger quantity start to become less beneficial to you. So I'm going to put this Camembert and the brie. So this one here is the brie here, and then we have the Camembert at this point here. I don't really like this cheese that much, so I'm not that big of a sort of a knowledgeable about identification of these cheeses. They look very similar, but they are slightly different, and we'll taste them in a minute. So I'm going to put these up to this end, and the Camembert is probably a little, because you can see it already, it's kind of melting. These have only just come out of the fridge, and I'm just going to put them there. So that's the Camembert and the brie. But then even more rich and dense are cheeses where you've had like sweet added into it, so the sweeter flavors. So this is like a spring onion and chives cream cheese. So this is much more dampening. And then also this is even more dampening, this cream cheese with cranberry and macadamia. So it's very sweet, like highly sweet and sort of dampening sort of cheeses. So we're going to put them kind of here. Put that one there. I've got a packet on them. And so this one kind of falls into the same sort of category. This is a Philadelphia cheese, like a cream cheese, but it's got fig and fennel with wattle seed cheese pour over. Now this is super rich and dense. So once we pour this out, you'll see how, there we go, how rich and dense it is. You can kind of see with this cheese that it's got this pour over thing here, and this is super, super sweet. So if we just even cut a little bit of that out so you can kind of see that that's very, very creamy and easy to, just creamy basically. It's a big creamy cheese. So that's that one there. So kind of at this end of the spectrum we've got that. Now I'm going to put these over here. Then here's another cheese that is one of my I might pop down like this. One of my favourite cheeses actually. It's called Persian Feta cheese. Now this doesn't have a sweet flavour in it, but you can probably see from the container, I'm going to open it up for you there, that it's got a lot of oil. Now the oil's just keeping the cheese sort of let's grab a little fork or some sort of thing here. The oil is kind of keeping the cheese preserved. So I'm just going to scoop out a little chunk here, and you can see how also similar to the Philadelphia cream cheese, it's probably not as creamy and it's less dampening because it's not sweet. So the Philadelphia cream cheese, this is a creamy kind of cheese, this Persian Feta, so you can sort of see how creamy it is, but it's not as, it's nice and soft, but it's not as sweet as this one here. The second thing to remember with this kind of cheese is it's full of oil. If you eat all that oil, that's also very dampening. So I'm going to put that Persian Feta there. Now I chose that one because it's quite a delicious Feta cheese, but it's also like there's lots of different kinds of Feta. So this would be the most dampening of the Fetas, and then as the Feta cheeses get harder, you can kind of see that they get less dampening. Okay, so we're coming along here. So we've got these kind of things that have got a lot of sweet infused. So this has got sweet, sugary sweets in it. I mean, if we look at the ingredients on this one here, it's got cream cheese, milk, cream, salt, vegetable gums, then cranberry, then sugar. So cranberries themselves are often infused in a sweet flavour or sugar as well. And then I've got two different cheeses here. So I've got Bocconcini, which are the small, the miniature mozzarellas, Bocconcinis. And we're going to sort of order those. Then we've got some harder cheeses here. We've got the vintage cheddar cheese. We've got another kind of cheddar cheese, which this says cheddar and Parmesan cheese infused. And I've got some ricotta, cottage cheese, sorry. Ricotta is very similar to this in its, where it would fit in the scale. So in this cheese lineup, then I'm going to put these other harder cheeses here. And these kind of ones sort of somewhere in between here. Now, I think this one's sort of down the end, down sort of towards these guys here. So what is this? This is Bocconcini. So Bocconcini is quite, it's a softer cheese, but it's definitely, you can see as I'm cutting it there. So if I take this one here and I put it on the plate here, and we just kind of use this little knife to like cut this cheese. If I cut this cheese, it's soft and it goes through, but it kind of retains its shape. If I squish it down like this, let's put him there. If I kind of go like that, he stays real spongy. He doesn't kind of, This cheese doesn't mush away. Whereas this cheese, this is the Philadelphia cream cheese, easy just mushes, it goes into a mush. And also this feta cheese just kind of goes into a mush, so you can see that sort of mushing away easily. I could just mush all that down. And so the fact that this is staying more solid is kind of showing you that it's probably less dampening than these other cheeses because it's less creamy, so it's a bit more solid. And this cheese has a much more rubbery nature, a much more blander kind of nature. And so that's also, the more bland something is and the less flavoursome it is in that way, it's less rich for you. Often what people do to cheeses to make them more delicious, if they are so bland, is to put either the sugary sort of food flavours in them, sweet or salty. Now this is halloumi here. Now halloumi is also a very dense and it's a hard cheese, and it's a cheese that you cook. So I think by cooking it, it lessens that dampening nature, because it kind of cooking it, especially when you grill it like this, it's kind of dried a little bit. But halloumi is very salty. And salty then changes that nature of the food. So now you're ingesting, instead of something like this bocconcini, which is really, really bland, now you're ingesting something salty. So the salty flavour is maybe not what your body needs. We'll go through other videos with different flavours, but that's just something to be aware of. Like, you don't want to have too much salty flavour. And so that's one thing that makes this very delicious, the halloumi very delicious, but something to be aware of. So as opposed to the bocconcini, which is extremely bland. I think I'm going to need a glass of wine to go with all this cheese after this video. Let's have some water there. So you can see that with salty, like, it makes you thirsty, and salty attracts water to the areas of your body. So salty can sometimes be not so good if you have dampness and you have a lot of fluid retention. You don't necessarily want to eat a lot of salty in your body as well, because that can be detrimental to you. It's not a desirable thing to have to happen. All right, so let's put these in order. So we've got the bocconcini here, and then we've got some of these hard cheeses. So this cheddar here, I'm not going to open this one out because it's very similar to the one I've got open here already. But I just want to have this so you could see how they come. Like, a lot of these cheeses are in the wax wrapping. And I mean, that's nice because it just makes them look cool and cute and everything. It doesn't really do anything to the nature of the cheese in a Chinese medicine thing sense. But what happens with, let's grab this knife here. So these two cheeses are very similar. This is a Ploughman's, what's called a Ploughman's vintage cheddar. It's a lot more softer than these harder cheeses. So if we cut this, so the test is kind of going to be cut it and then squish on it and see how squishy it is. So this really crumbles away real easily, and it gets, it's very soft. So it's all sticking to the knife and it's very soft. So, and this is, again, there's a lot of flavour in these cheeses. So this has got a garlic and onion kind of flavour infused in it. So it's almost towards, in some ways, towards these kind of creamier cheeses. But, so I would probably almost put this cheese before these ones here. I'd probably put this in the cheese bar lineup. We're just going to put this here. So I'd put that there, and then I would have my kind of halloumi here, and then pop this one here, because this is a lot more creamier. So we're going to have to move him back to here. This is a lot more creamier than it looks. So on the outset, it kind of looks like a harder cheese, but when you taste it and when you do that test, you can see that it's very rich, and it's also extremely like, that's what makes it more rich, is that more creamier flavour. So if for anything in dairy products, and if you're thinking about dampness, the more creamier something is, the more like squishy it is, the richer it is, the more stronger the mouthfeel in terms of that mouthfeel that has a coating and like that buttery or that rich kind of coating. That fat quantity, that would make things more dampening versus things that are a bit more tart, a bit harder. And so then we have this cheese here, which is the cottage cheese. Cottage cheese. Yep. Now, cottage cheese is known for being a lot more lower fat than other cheeses, and you can get a low fat. I think this is the low fat version of cottage cheese. What's good about that is, you know, a lot of people on diets who want to have that cheesy flavour want to put this onto sandwiches or like use it as a dip or something like that. So let's have a taste of this. And it does have a salty flavour, but it's very mild salty. It's certainly not as salty as that. Nowhere near as salty as the halloumi. And it's almost on par with this kind of bocconcini texture and consistency. It's not as rich as tasting as this even. So I would say that this cottage cheese is a lot less dampening than all these other cheeses here. So I'm going to pop this cheese here. The halloumi is definitely that harder, rubbery taste. The only thing that makes that sort of an outlier is that salty flavour. So I just want to sort of point that out. And I'm going to put this little guy kind of here with this. So this is kind of that richer cheeses. Now then we get down to the really harder cheeses. So these cheeses here are much harder, and this comes down to kind of almost your stock standard cheese that you would get from the like supermarkets as just your everyday kind of cheese. So you have Colby cheese and semi-matured and fully matured. So the more matured the cheese is, the less dampening it is, okay, the harder it is, and the less easy melting that cheese is going to be. So that's something to think about. Like, the more easy that cheese melts, like a mozzarella, is going to be a lot more kind of dampening because it melts really easily. Now this is nice and easy to cut. I think this is a Colby actually. This cheese. Let's have a quick check. It's just called cheddar cheese. So it's not really matured, but it doesn't disintegrate. I'm squishing it in my fingers here. It definitely doesn't disintegrate like these guys down here, like the Camembert or the brie or the. We didn't really do that test on these ones, but if I show you that, this is the. Let's just move him out of the way. So this is the Camembert. So if I take a little slice of a Camembert cheese, and I've got that cheese in one hand, and I've got this cheese in the other hand, and I squeeze them. Well, this cheese, it sticks. It's still rubbery, but it's like starting to disintegrate, and it's starting to smoosh. So definitely, those cheeses are kind of. That's the Camembert cheese. It's a lot softer, whereas if I do the same thing to this cheese and squeeze it, it still squishes down a little bit, but it's not disintegrating into like that. Now, if I pick these cheeses up and did that, you'd know, because it'd be just a big oily mess. So we're just going to put these aside. There. So hopefully that little test will kind of give you an idea about how to kind of assess the cheese that you might be coming across and coming into contact with, or thinking about cheeses. So next time you're looking at a cheese board, if you have dampness and you're thinking which cheese should I avoid, which cheese could I have that's not going to be as bad for my dampness, for cheeses that have got richer flavour infusions into them would definitely be more dampening. So these kind of spring onion cheese and the apricot infused cheese, that kind of stuff, the more oily it is. And then finally, so I would probably put this cheese kind of down here at the end. And then finally after that is all of these kind of hard cheeses that are aged. So the longer the aged ones, you've got 24 months aged, lots of more aged vintage cheeses. This is an infused with Parmesan cheese. And if you've ever grated up Parmesan cheese, you'll know it's quite hard. It doesn't melt very easily. So it's often used for that. It's got that tart, strong flavour. So if you like a cheesy flavour, but you don't want too much rich density in terms of dampness, then you could go for something like a Parmesan cheese. So the other thing I wanted to mention to you are these kind of like, I just bought this pretty much to do this video. These kind of easy, quick cheeses, I guess, like pre-made cheeses. Something to, it's pre-made, they're all made. But what's happened here is that they've pre-grated the cheese. And this is just a blend of different cheeses that's been sort of pre-grated. What you might notice when you get this cheese is that they put like a starchy substance on or in the cheese. So if I do that, I can really feel like a dust, a powder sort of thing there. If they didn't put that, then the cheese from the time it's made in the factory to when you get it and you actually use it, it would eventually sort of try to melt back into its original format. It wouldn't stay very nice in these little separated, beautiful, special little things, little sectional things. And you can see that it's got all that dust that I've got on my fingers. And you can see that the dust on my fingers from that cheese. Yeah. So what is that? So where does this sit in terms of a dampness? It's probably down the end here because it's a mixture of the cheddar and the Colby and the it's got a mixture of cheddar, Colby and Parmesan actually. So it's one of these ones that's for baking. But just depending on what it is, obviously it depends on what it's going to do. But usually with those cheeses, it's down the harder end. So all cheese to some degree has a dampening effect. So your practitioner, your acupuncturist, or your Chinese herbalist might say to you, "Oh, you have dampness, so try to avoid cheese." Or you have what other conditions would they say that in? Probably like spleen qi deficiency or spleen yang deficiency. You shouldn't be having too much cheese, or you should stay away from dairy products. So yes, that's true. If you want to be 100% healthy, then probably do stay away from those things. But I know from my experience, a lot of patients who have that, they got into that situation because they love those foods, and it's hard for them to stay away from it in entirety. So out of all of these cheeses, if you have dampness or you have spleen yang or spleen qi deficiency or some kind of deficiency, you're better off around these cheeses. The less salty, the better. And if you have a more of a deficiency condition where your body needs that nourishment, so you don't have a weight problem, you're like more thin and you might be very dry in your body and you need that moisturization, then you probably could eat some of these things without having too much of a problem. It's, again, I can't stress enough, it's the quantity of stuff that you have, so not so much just the quality or the actual product. So having a small amount of cheese, like at a party, having this much cheese on a cracker is not so much a problem, but sitting down and grazing on a whole big cheese board, or having too much of one kind of cheese, or having any of the, like having this much of Camembert cheese that's a lot of richness and density, and that's going to make anyone feel like that's going to overwork anyone's spleen and stomach, their earth element, and make them work too hard. And it's probably not a good idea to have that kind of amount of any kind of these cheeses. So cheese is good for a condiment. It's good to use as a flavouring for things, and to have it sparingly, and then you can really enjoy it. So part of Chinese medicine is about enjoying your foods and enjoying the process of digesting the foods, and getting that enjoyment out of the foods and not worrying. So if you worry a lot, then that affects your spleen, your earth element, and that's not good for you either. So I hope that you can kind of get some knowledge out of this and be empowered to choose the right kind of cheese for you, and just to have things in, like when you have it sparingly and you have it in like a treat thing rather than just like an everyday food, then sometimes you enjoy it even more because you don't just have it all the time, and you can kind of really enjoy the different kinds of foods that are available to you. I hope this video has been helpful to you, and if it has, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because I love making these videos, and we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers this year, and we're on the way. Thanks for joining me on a journey of cheese today, and hopefully you've discovered some interesting things about all the different kinds of cheeses and what they do in a Chinese medicine sense, what situations they might be helpful for. If you've got a question, you've got something you'd like to know about in Chinese medicine, I love answering questions, so let me know in the comments below. If you're not a subscriber on the channel already, then click that subscribe button. Really want to thank all the people that have subscribed so far. It's been great to see the channel really growing. And it's my hope that this year we will reach 1,000 subscribers, so we still can do that. There's not much time of the year. There's not much time left in the year, but I'm committed to making great videos and to bringing you the content that you want to see. So please let me know what you would like to see. If you like more of this, less of that, less of this, something else, let me know what you like. And let people know about this channel. If you've got friends or family or patients that use Chinese medicine, You might be a practitioner yourself and you just need some content to put on your own social media. Feel free to share the videos. Chinese Medicine Podcast is also now on iTunes and Spotify and all those places where you can get audio podcasts. Not all the things. This one particularly won't go on there because it's more of a visual orientated thing. So there's some content that I'll just keep on YouTube, and then other content will go onto the podcast channel as well. So the audio podcast audio podcast channels. When we get to 1,000 subscribers this year, I'm going to be I've got some awesome bloopers that have happened since I've been making these videos, and I would love to share them with you. So please subscribe to the channel because I can't wait to share those funny bloopers with you. I'm sure that you'll have a laugh just like I do every time I edit these videos. And I want to see this channel grow to 1,000 subscribers this year. So please, subscribe. And I want to thank you for coming on the journey with me and sharing your